A number of years ago, my goodness, had been 10 years ago, I left the office of the president of Family Christian Network down in Costa Rica. He just got through giving me the news that there's a conference coming up and the place that I was staying on the FCN compound needed to be used. He hated to break the news to me, but was going to put me up in a hotel. And I said, no, you know, I didn't want that to be a trouble to him. And said, don't worry about it. I stepped out and I was going to get a taxi. As I stepped out of FCN parking lot, get a taxi and take me back down to the compound. And I couldn't get a taxi. It was the first time in my life I didn't see these little red vehicles everywhere. And so I started walking down the street. And then I got down the street and Roberto Amaya, my Spanish voice for the television program, came running down the road and you know, had a message by a phone that wasn't even necessary for him to interrupt me. But you know, he held me up there for a few minutes, and then I walked down the road, and something caught my eye at a service station. I walked over to the service station. It was shut down. They had a bunch of movie posters in English and Spanish. So I'm standing there looking at these posters, and then this Range Rover, white Range Rover, just completely whited out with tinted windows, pulls in with 4 guys in it, and they just stop, and they're all looking at me. I reached in and just checked the safety of my .45 automatic, which I wish I had at that moment. And then the window rolled down, and these 4 guys all looking at me very, very intently and said, "Are you Michael?" And I said, "Rood." I walked over there. And the driver then said, "You know, the Lord told me that you're going to be staying at my house about a month ago." And that was Walter Alpizar. And I said, "Okay, give me a ride over." And the next day we moved in with Walter and Florence at their place in Costa Rica. The same day. Was it the same? Okay, the same day. Moved in with Walter and Florence down there, and that began our relationship. I met this Tico and his wife, who were just selling out of Propocadusa chicken that very day. I believe it was Friday morning. You closed the deal after, you know, having this this corporation for many years, and that began our friendship. And it finally turned out to where Florence then took over the reins of running our Israel tours, and that's why I'm still doing them today, because of the burden, the weight that she carries to make sure things are done right. And Florence, you come out of a Mennonite background, don't you?
Very Mennonite for many, many generations, about 400 years, with very, very little change. And I was just barely coming out of it when we met you.
Okay, so that's quite a step from Mennonite over to Hebrew roots. You know, this is quite an adventure, was it not?
Well, it didn't happen overnight. I was a very good Mennonite, one of the most fanatic ones you could find. And of course, like many people, I was absolutely sure that was the only religion that really mattered. So I think in that part, at least, many people can feel the same way. But my husband, being a good Hanukkite, was asking the uncomfortable questions. And he really put me to thinking. So I had to go back to the Bible to prove him wrong. Because, of course, I knew that Shabbat wasn't the day to celebrate. It was just a matter of showing it with the scriptures.
After 400 years, you know what you're talking about.
Exactly. She
doesn't look that old.
You can't change me overnight. I mean, you know. But to my big surprise, I'm like, you're absolutely right. You know, how come I have never seen this before? And we started asking a lot of questions, and there was really nobody we could share it with because, of course, my family wouldn't accept it, neither would his family. We didn't have any friends. We were just starting to study. And for a while, we thought we were the only ones in Costa Rica that were asking these questions. And then we started going with another group that was very Orthodox, somewhat Messianic. But coming from my Mennonite background, I had seen enough that I didn't want to jump from the frying pan into the fire. And that's
right.
what
You
it looked
came
like.
from a world of tradition.
Very much tradition.
And you know, I have to add that you really, you know, even though you're a good Mennonite, you were also a rebel.
I was on the borderline.
Borderline, that's right.
Enough to not
Because you
get
did
kicked
something
out.
that really you got called to task for when you were 16, wasn't it? Didn't you do something radical with your clothing?
Well, I kind of tended to do that all the time. You know, I was trying to see how far I could go, which wasn't very far.
Okay, well, let's see her because, you know, is this two-piece bathing suit? What was this in the Mennonite culture that was a little risque?
Well, you know, we were allowed only one color per clothing. You know, the whole dress had to be one solid color, so I wasn't going to change that. But I decided I wanted a little frill of the same material, which was a homemade dress. I wanted a little frill of the same color on my collar, and that was too much. I got called in by the pastors. And that's just one example.
Putting a little lace border on your collar.
No lace. No
lace,
no. It was the same material as the solid colored dress. It just had a little frill of the same material.
I could see how you would be due for the Inquisition right then.
Yeah, so. But enough things like that started happening that I started waking up and I said, this looks like a cult. You know, why isn't this working? And well, that was before we were married. And so before we got married, actually, I had asked enough questions to get pretty much kicked out of the church. But I was still very strongly defending the faith. It was just like, okay, these guys got a little bit off track, but I'm still defending them. When my husband Walter starts asking these questions, you know, we start, okay, well, Shabbat, the feast, we start going in the kosher food, we start making a slow change, but I was quite reluctant, and for about a year, I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because this is like, you know, it's just another bunch of rules for a long time. So yes, it makes sense, but, you know, where is it going to be alive? And one of the key things that happened was the week that we met you, like you were saying, I was just getting out of a 24-hour day job, and so I actually had a little bit of more time to think. And at the same time, you were the first people that we had ever met that believe in Yeshua and yet were believers of the Torah. And all at once, it dawned on me especially that you don't have to be a legalistic. You can actually do this with joy and with life, and it's not about adding all the laws. For me, the big thing was that I saw all these laws being added, like, okay, you know, you have commanded us to light the candles, and I would go like, but where is that commandment? And, you know, I'm just getting out of so many man-made rules. I'm not going to fall into another one that has just as many. And then, you know, and all at once it dawned on us, well, you know, we don't have to do the man-made rules. That is not part of the package at all.
Yeah, so you were kind of putting the brakes on because you were saying more man-made rules because it was kind of a rabbinic, messianic congregation. And so that really put the brakes on Walter a little bit to get him to stop and think, yeah, this is not quite adding up.
Right, because Walter didn't feel the same reluctance because he didn't have that traumatic background. But for me to have left my background included a lot of traumatic experiences. So there's no way I'm going to do the whole thing with just another clothing because it was all over the same thing I had just come out of. But, you know, for some reason it took us a while to understand that the man-made rules are not part of obeying the Torah at all.
That's right.
So that has been very interesting to find it.
And we've had such a wonderful relationship. I mean, we just have a fun time, a great time together. And so when I go, like down into Argentina and these other areas, Walter and Florence, we all travel together. Walter is my voice in Spanish on all the live stuff because he's the only person that's got the energy to keep up with me. And he's actually got more energy than I do. Well, he's younger than I am, so he can do that. But, you know, it's really been a joyous adventure together, and we've been able to turn things around on other continents as well in the Spanish language.
Yes. It's been very enlightening, and it's been a little bit of both. Like you say, it's been a slice of heaven because we've had some fun times. We've gone through some really, really rough times.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, having to take you to the hospital one day because we weren't sure what was happening, you know.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of really...
one night ended up in 2 ambulances and 3 hospitals in one night. So, things got a little wild down there in Costa Rica one night.
Yeah. And then also we had the opportunity to hear a lot of testimonies from the Spanish world, how they're impacted with what you're doing. And just a few days ago, Michael, or about a month ago, you called me and said you were coming to Costa Rica. I mean, we revved up the whole Spanish world, and we had like 300 people. And then last minute, we had to tell them we didn't have much time to announce you. Otherwise, we would have had a lot more people. But last minute, you know, we had to give them the sad news you weren't coming. But there's a lot of people that got really excited when they heard you were coming. So it's been fun being a little representation of you there in that sense too.
Well, you know, sometimes I'm penny wise and pound foolish. You know, even now, I'm supposed to fly over to Israel on a standby ticket, you know, when everybody in the world's trying to get out of Dallas. Same thing there, and I just couldn't get on. And it's like, man, I just should have paid full price. You know, I just try to save the ministry as much money as possible, fly standby, fly coach, take the worst seat on the plane, whatever it takes to get the job done. But, you know, sometimes you're like that. I got completely blown out, and so I left all these people hanging, ready to hear the gospel of the kingdom, and I don't show up. So, you know, sometimes I end up kicking myself in my own tuchus. Yeah. But
yeah,
that's the way it goes.
we would have gotten you on the plane, but it was too late. By the time we found out there was no space.
It was all over but the crying. So I think I'm beginning to learn some lessons. And one of the lessons that we've learned is that what we're doing in Israel changes people's lives. Absolutely. And I have threatened after every tour, I say, never again. And that after about a month, and I start hearing what's happening in people's lives, I say, you know, I lived through it. I think I can do it again, but I need some serious help. And so that's when Florence stepped up and said, let me handle some of the nitty-gritty, nasty stuff that has to happen in order for you to do what you do. And that's what makes these tours different than anything else. So why don't you take us a little tour, give us a little bit of an overview here.
Okay. I think we can have the presentation up. Yeah. Okay. I do organizing freelance tours with different companies, different organizations and churches, but the Michael Rood...
You can actually look up on this one here, Florence. A little bit easier for you. He'll keep that up.
But the Michael Rood tour is a very, very unique tour. First of all, because of Michael Rood, you know, it couldn't be the same tour as anybody else because he comes in and he just spices things up. But I want to mention just very briefly a few of the other things that also make it very, very different. It's a custom-made tour, not the regular standard. There's companies, and I've been part of a participation in Israeli tourism, and there's companies that send through hundreds of groups every week, and it's one custom tour, and you can't as much as put an extra bathroom stop in them because they're all so regulated. And the tours with Michael Rood are very much custom-made, uniquely adapted to the experience and vision that Michael Rood has and that his teachings and that just, you know, bring new meaning to it. Another difference that Michael's been emphasizing is that we go around the country exactly in the opposite direction. Like, I don't know if you can tell from this slide, most people read, you know, first Tel Aviv and last of all Jerusalem. Instead, in the Hebraic reading, you know, we read from right to left. So we go first Jerusalem and end up in Tel Aviv. And that has been something that Michael Rood does that I don't think any other tours do. So when you have the most, when you're just there, then we start with Jerusalem, which is the highest impact. Another difference is that we have completely different schedules. Most tours go to churches that were built by Constantine's mother, who chose the sites according to religious convenience. The Michael Rood tour visits many sites that require entrance fees versus the common church-to-church tour. And by that, I just want to add that a lot of the churches, a lot of the sites, for almost everything that happened, there's a traditional site. And most of these traditional sites make absolutely no sense. And I was just in Israel 2 weeks ago, actually 1 week ago, and the guide was stumbling around. He's trying to explain to the group why Bethsaida has two different sites. And people are like, but you said there's a Bethsaida there and there's a Bethsaida here. And he just like, and finally, it's just religious convenience. The only place is, let's make a site that is easy for everybody to visit. They don't have to get out of their wheelchairs. They don't have to get out of their buses. So let's just say this is Bethsaida. But the real Bethsaida is at a completely different place. That's a little bit further away, and you spend 2-3 kilometers more driving, you know. So a lot of sites in Israel.
And there are no gift stores at the real one.
Right, there's no gift stores, yeah. And just till recently, there were no bathrooms. So, okay, you can't take tourists there. Yep. And so we've been going to the real site and not to the traditional ones. That is just for people that make it easier. And then, of course, like I said before, the unique Michael Rood character that just totally puts a drama to the tour. And, he teaches everybody to be Hanukkites before the tour is over. So we laugh a lot. We have a lot of fun. From the first day, Michael teaches you how to march, and it's just one wonderful experience from beginning to end. Some reasons why to go to Israel. There's so many reasons. I could talk about it all night, but just to go through really fast, for example, we visit the places of blessings that you can actually today see the real places that the scriptures talk about. For example, this is Mount Gerizim, where all the blessings were spoken out when they first came into the land of Israel.
Right, and for years we had to pay extra for armored buses and armored guards to be with us on this tour, and and everything at great additional cost. But what I teach you there will carry you for the rest of your life, and these are things that nobody else is going to go out of their way to do because it costs to do it. But that's why my tours cost more, because all the other tours out there are made to make money for churches. This is to turn you into disciples.
Michael, there have been guides, I think it was a year or two ago, a guide that does that for his living. He guides tour groups all his life long. And he told me, you know what, Florence, I haven't been here in 30 years. Since I served in the army. And he's going like, I don't know why groups don't come here. It's so beautiful. It's so nice. But like nobody knows that we can come to this place. Recently, I've seen another 1 or 2 buses once in a while, but it used to be, nobody else would come here. And it's really one of my favorite spots. It's definitely a place of blessing even today.
And the son of the high priest of the Samaritans is a personal friend of mine, been a friend for many years, and we get a specialized treatment when we get there.
That's true. I don't know of any other group that ever gets the high priest of the Samaritans to talk to the people. And, he has a lot of interesting things to say. Some more sites that are very unique that relate exactly very much directly back to the scriptures. Well, the Garden Tomb, the place that Michael's been talking about several times this weekend, that's the first picture there where Yeshua was buried. You can still go, you see proof, evidence of why that most likely was the place. And, it just totally brings the scriptures, the stories of Yeshua to a different light. Once you've been in there, you'll never be the same.
That's right. And after we do the regular tour that everyone goes on, then I take you back around again, and I get to tell you and show you the excavation site for the Ark of the Covenant and all that nobody else gets to see.
And they will talk against it if you ask them, the people that work at the same place.
It has to be kept quiet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the bottom picture here is Sea of Galilee, which is also something that we read about a lot. Yeshua's ministry was centered around the Sea of Galilee. So there's a lot of things that happened right there, and you actually get to be in a little boat like this and worship and see the little cities that come around. Then there's places of judgment that, like the first picture, Gomorrah, that where we pick up the sulfur balls that rained down thousands of years ago. You actually have the proof in your hand of the story that, we always read about that happened so many years ago. So I just think it's amazing to be able to say, not only do I have faith in what I believe and what the scriptures say, but now I also have the proof of the pudding right in my hands. So it adds a completely different dimension to your understanding of the scriptures.
Everybody leaves Israel with brimstone that rained down out of heaven 4,000 years ago. That's a feature no one else does.
That's pretty amazing. And the only people that know about this place are people that have gone with Michael. I think pretty much. I mean, the guides don't know about this place. Nobody knows about this place, and they always kind of freak out.
Well, it's a little bit dangerous going back in there. That's why I get you in there before the sun rises, because people die out in that desert. I mean, it is hot out there. So we schedule the time of year, we schedule the time of day, everything, so that we're completely safe doing this. I haven't lost a person yet. I almost lost myself a couple times out there from heat exhaustion, but I don't take you out when it's dangerous.
Actually, Michael, if you remember, that's one of the things I changed, though. I don't make you go out before sunrise anymore, because Michael did that until I came on board.
At a different time of year.
Yeah, so you don't have to get up at 3:30 anymore. You used to before I came on board.
She's such a wuss.
I'm a party pooper, so I don't make you get up at 3:30 anymore. That's one of the things Michael hasn't made me do yet. And the bottom picture on the right-hand side that you see there, that's of the city of Capharnaum. Capernaum, like the King James Version says, which is a city in ruins. And we remember Yeshua said that it would be better off for Sodom and Gomorrah, than it would be for Bethsaida, Capernaum, Chorazin, and some of these cities. So you can actually go and you see the city is still in ruins today. Okay, there's sites that bring a completely new historical accuracy, or that bring historical accuracy to a new dimension. Like we're saying, you can understand it a lot better. That first picture is of the place that Michael mentioned just, I think, earlier tonight, of the Roman seal in the Garden Tomb. And that's one of our good friends, Dan Rose, pointing out the Roman seal. And that is, very interesting aspect, because that kind of a grave was not a Roman grave. So why does this grave have a Roman seal on it? Because we remember the story of Yeshua, that they went and said, well, what if the disciples steal it? So they were okay to put a Roman seal on it to make sure that the grave, would not be opened.
So and iron pin still in the wall, sheared off when the angel rolled the stone back. You're going to touch it with your own hands.
Exactly. So that is also, you can never read that story in the same way, and it becomes alive to you after you've seen there. And that other pictures of my husband in Hezekiah's tunnel, one of his favorite places, where this tunnel was hand dug out thousands of years ago in order to save the besieged city of Jerusalem. And of course, on tour, you also understand some very key terminology, like the seat of Moses that Michael was talking about yesterday. There you see a picture of it that, where in Matthew it talks about the seat of Moses.
Right. You can sit on the seat of Moses, take a picture, and say, now you have to do everything I tell you to do. Those who read the King James.
And we talk about the Netzer. Was Yeshua called a Nazarene because he came from Nazareth, or was he called a Netzer? He's a branch off like the olive tree.
Netzeret. Yeah.
Netzeret, yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay, and then of course we have some fun things to do, like floating in the Dead Sea. There's always a good Shabbat. We spend the Shabbat around that area so you can just relax and have some fun times and get on a camel, which that camel down there, that is Harold, who is Michael Rood's full-time, works with the ministry full-time in answering the phone and in Central America. So he's there on the camel.
Yeah, we ride the camels out to a Bedouin tent for lunch.
Often we do it with a Bedouin tent for lunch, right? Yeah. Okay, so when is our next tour coming up? May 4th to 16 in 2014, departing from Newark. And we plan to spend 4 days in Jerusalem, 1 day in Samaria, 2 days in the Dead Sea, 2 days in the Galilee, and 2 days in the Western Coast, which includes places like Nazareth, Caesarea, Maritima, Megiddo, and then also we do some really important educative things in Tel Aviv. Okay? So that's coming up here. So some price information, you might have already seen it. The price is $4,900 per person. That includes leaving in Newark, the flight from Newark, and the whole package like we just mentioned. And of course we have the discount. It's almost running out. The December 10 is the last day to apply for this discount. Yeah, and then we have another.
We get discounts from the airlines and all for booking early, so we just pass it on to you.
So there is the plan of payment, and I will be out there on the table outside the door tonight and tomorrow all day. In case you have more questions, we can look at it with a little bit more detail.
So what was that, the deposit, $500 to hold?
Yeah, the $500, you have to do that to be able to hold your seat. Because we have a lot, actually I have about 10 reservations on my desk, but with no money. So I can't hold them because sadly we need the money to be able to do.
And so if you want to go tonight, step out there, register, because that may be one of the reasons why we didn't go on the internet. Because once this hits, last year it was Hanukkah, bam, the seats were gone. That was it, okay? So, we don't know if we'll be able to do this in future years or not, but this year we're going to do it. Don't get afraid, that, the world's coming to an end and Howard Camping is coming back on a white horse or anything. If something like that, I'm not going to put you deliberately in danger unless you want to be. And no, and so, just, if you want to go, make a commitment, because every year people freak out and think that something's going to happen and nothing happens, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm sure the Almighty is good enough to not let us all get killed when we're trying to do His will.
I always tell people that we support Israel and we want Israel to be an independent country, and we think people should be there putting their lives down for the country. So 10 days in a lifetime is not very much to give if we really believe in the country of Israel. And like Michael said, of course, you know, nothing has ever interfered with that in at least the last 10 years, because every year a lot of people miss it because of fear. But it is Jehovah's special country, like I was saying yesterday. He chose it for a special reason. And I think if we identify and bless Israel, he will also identify with us and bless us. And we have a special song with some music for the first 5 households that sign up here. They get this as a little thank you gift. It's Voices of the Bible, some nice Hebraic songs.
Oh, okay.
That actually got passed on. Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. Something you brought from Israel this last trip?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I had it from before. Yeah. So there's 5 there for the first people that sign up from here, and 5 for the first people that sign up from internet.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now, Florence, what we're going to do is when we break from here, because there's a little bit I want to cover, then people can go out and they can register, and then you know, we'll probably put this on the internet tomorrow when this gets up, and so we'll finish out the registration probably tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. But we have been talking about this for some time, about those who really want to dig into not only the 7 assemblies of the Revelation, but also into the epistles and some of the difficult verses, and trying to understand, you know, as we have some things that seem to be contrary with what Shaul is speaking in Corinth and Ephesus and things like that. We are going to be doing a cruise of the Aegean Sea, and this is going to be coming up this next year. So let's talk about it. This is our first time. This is going to be a unique experience. We're all going to experience this together for the first time. So tell us a little bit about that.
Let me see here if I can get. Okay, yes. This is going to be a very exciting thing, because I have gone to these places before, most of them, not all of them, but we're looking at doing this to understand better the 7 churches of Revelations. So we're combining an Asia Minor, Aegean Sea, and Greece for next year in September. So we have this package put together. It includes
this is before the Feast of Sukkot. All right.
I don't remember if it was before or after. I just know that we made sure it didn't coincide.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's before.
Okay. Okay. So we put up this really neat package. It includes the international flights from JFK to Istanbul and a return Athens to JFK. So it's not a round trip. It's got 2 different flights. It includes 2 domestic flights, and it includes a 3-day, 2-night sea cruise, and then, of course, the land package, which is, it'll be 5 nights in Asia Minor, what is known today as Turkey, 2 at the Aegean Sea, and 2 in Greece. The package includes all your meals, breakfast, lunches, and dinners. It includes a local English-speaking guide who is knowledgeable with the scriptures and who can help us with all the local directions and local activities. So it's always good to have somebody local on board, even though Michael will be doing a lot of the teachings, but we also have somebody to fill us in with the geographical part, just like in Israel for those who have gone to Israel. And then, okay, the package includes all the entrance fees to the sites, of course, all the tours during the day, a driver, air-conditioned bus, and full-time tour director also. And we actually have a special escort on the ship with us, too, to help us out with any local issues. So we're very, very well planned through a very well company. And, of course, most of all, you know, Michael Rood's charisma, and he'll be with us in leadership and teaching. And
I have to bring charisma with me, huh? Okay.
That's incorporated automatically, don't worry.
Okay. All right.
Okay, and of course he's eager to share with us what it has already taken him decades to learn. So that will be very interesting because it's the first time for Michael. So we'll be going to all these sites, and a lot of these sites are ruins. But for example, we have the city of Laodicea used to be. I get my Spanish and German a little bit mixed up with my English sometimes. And so this is a very interesting site. For example, when we read that it says he would rather we be cold or hot, but not lukewarm, we actually stand at a place where we can see the snow on one side and the thermal hot waters on the other side. So even though there's not a present-day city, these sites help a lot to bring meaning again to what we read, especially in this case in the book of Revelations. So the tour is all about bringing the scriptures to life, reading it in third dimension, like I say, and just being able to understand a little bit better what the scriptures teach. So here's a very brief itinerary of what we plan to do. We have Istanbul, we have Cappadocia, we have Izmir, Philadelphia, Laodicea, Sardis, is back to Izmir, Pergamon. Pergamon was where the Temple of Zeus used to be, which is very interesting. It's way up on top of a mountain.
The seat of Satan. Yep,
it's way up on top of a mountain, and then you look through over all the valley where the common people used to live. But the Temple of Zeus is way up. So that's in Pergamon. We have Thyatira, Ephesus, and then we go on the cruise. We're on there for 3 days, 2 nights. We stop. The first day we'll have a stop in Patmos. We'll do a teaching.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be where Yohanan wrote the book of Revelation as it was dictated by Yeshua in writing his vision. So we'll be there.
Okay, and then after the cruise, we have 2 days in Greece. We'll be doing the ancient Corinth on the first day and Athens on the second day. And then after that, we fly back to New York. So, okay, very interesting. Here are the prices that we always need to look at to make sure that we can make it happen. So we have the early discount by March 7. We have the price for $4,600, which, like I said before, includes all those flights, the 2 international ones and the 2 domestic ones, as well as pretty well everything on the tour except for your personal expenses. And then we have the $100 more after that date.
Well, I am very excited about this. I'm looking forward to this. And, you know, at first we said you had to have gone on an Israel tour before we do this. And really the idea was, you know, I don't need some pain in the tuchus neophytes coming along asking stupid questions, okay? These are for people that have studied my material so that we can go on from there. It's like, you know, make sure that if you want to go on this tour that you've gotten the Jonah Code, that you've gone through the Raiders of the Lost Book, the Ancient Hebrew Matthew, the Doctrine of the Nicolaitans, all these things.
The Secret of Solomon's Temple.
Secret of Solomon's Temple, all this, you know, study this up. And one of the good things about this is not as rigorous as Jerusalem. And so for my mother's 80th birthday, I'm taking my mother on this cruise. And so she's going to be able to enjoy going. And so everyone that wants to go with my mother, you don't have to have gone on an Israel tour before, okay? But I want you to have studied up before you get there, okay? Because then we can just keep on going, and this is going to be a great time. So this is going to be much easier. You don't have to walk 3 to 5 miles a day without pain up and down hills like we do in Jerusalem. But on this tour, it's going to be an absolute hoot. So thank you for putting that together, Florence. And we are going to, when we break here in just a few moments, you can meet Florence out there. She's going to have some helpers to help you get signed up for this. And I guess you're going to need that, right? Okay, well, thank you, Florence.
Thank you.
Lovely.